Good morning. My name is Tom Cross, and this is an introduction to Digital Meetings Technology Professional Certification. This starts a long way back because I've been working in this area for a very long time, and I just want to kind of give an update as to where we're going with this thing. All questions will be answered at the end. I'll be here as long as you like. However, please note them down, as often the case may be. They may be answered a little later in the presentation. You're welcome to email me or contact me by phone. Here are a few of my road rules, which I use and it should be used in really any kind of meeting, whether it be live or digital. My job is speak, your job is listen. If you get done before me, you're free to go out to play. Or look at another way, it is that the slides, albeit not all of them are in the book, I'm here for the entertainment. And look at another way, you can read 5 times faster than I can speak, and I'm certainly counting on that. This is a non-technical session to give an introduction, not an in-depth analysis of the topic. The road rules are changing every day, so take this instruction as a guideline, not an absolute. This was really designed to provide people an introduction to the real problems that people face in moving from face-to-face meetings to digital meetings. As one friend said more than 30 years ago, if you're boring face-to-face, you're still going to be boring by video or digital. And as another angel VC said, that's true. Technology only makes you look worse. So you kind of have to put that in mind, that what this is all about is that it's not, there's been hundreds of millions of dollars spent on video conferencing, audio conferencing, and the whole digital meeting space. What you find out there is people still do a very bad job. It's kind of like, well, people who sell cars don't help people learn how to drive them. And I think you really kind of read through some of the evaluations here, what people are really thinking about this class. It really kind of helps them get their act together as far as speaking, presenting, organizing. Yes, you can provide a transcript of the meeting, but that doesn't really tell you what people are really feeling. It doesn't tell them what they're committed to. I really find that fascinating. Yeah, it's really important to have a transcript of the meeting, but at the same time is that you're really not helping people through the whole process. So moving right along, these are just some of the elements. This is a 1 to 2 day plus 3 class. So again, we're not going to go through all the slides or all the concepts presented, but just give you kind of an overview of what we're going to be talking about. This is basically talks about the elements in a business meeting. So again, you're reading on this a lot faster than I can speak it, so I'm going to kind of move on from that. But it gives you an idea of what you should be looking for in any kind of meeting or event. Word about teaching and learning. You do not learn by me talking. I've done that in so many sales training classes. Because again, if you're trying to convey knowledge, my talking does not help you learn it. You're learning it is by how you incorporate that into your own learning system. One of the best ways to persuade others is with your ears, by listening to them. And education isn't as much how you have committed to memory or even how much you know. It's being able to differentiate between what you know and what you don't. These are just some of the concepts that we kind of explore, because the whole idea of communications is very complex. I put this chart together. There's really 4 types of communication. There's one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one, and many-to-many. And each of these is reflected in the various kind of technologies that we see out there today. Voice, like this situation, could be one-to-many, like an audio conference, but typically a telephone call is one-to-one. Video can be the same way. I think video is really useful in kind of a personal thing, but at the same time that the people you're doing with video, you probably really know them and you've seen them live before. Not always, but more often. Blogs and distribution lists are one-to-many, and many-to-one are wikis and things like that. It's also known as Microsoft Teams or Slack or other concepts like that. Depends on what information you're trying to get across. Again, if you're trying to get across speaking information, again, people have to kind of plow through that. Every day I see on LinkedIn somebody's complaining about too many meetings because the meetings are too slow. The reason being is that, again, you'll find out in a few minutes how fast you can really read. So the other side of it is that there's 4 types of, we'll call it machine communication and things like that. So you kind of have to organize yourself on these kinds of environments: person to person, person to machine, machine to person, I'm broken, come fix me. and machine-to-machine technologies that really help people kind of organize the way they're going to communicate with the systems out there. The reality of why meetings are so bad is because the organizational velocity is so slow. Again, the reality is that the larger the organization, the less gets done. Why? Because communications is serial or sequential rather than simultaneous. You know, we have to kind of lockstep. You know, if you think of the people standing in line, that's how corporate communications is all about. People standing in line rather than kind of standing side by side. So you kind of have to organize yourself around that. The other side of it is what they call the mythical man month or the meeting man month or whatever. As the reality of the meeting size, the larger the meeting, the less gets done. Why? Because communications is the same way. Didn't I just say that a few minutes ago? Sometimes communication really does need to be reinforced, but also the whole learning process is very complex. You cannot understand what people are going through. The other thing is that it's all about time. We all have about the same amount of time in each day, but there are different types of times out there, and one needs to organize yourself around the different types of time that exist out there. Some of this has to do with machine technologies, etc., but at the same time is that understanding how time events occur in any kind of one situation or organization is really important. Session 2, we kind of drill into the technologies, video, audio, graphic, and augmented. We're kind of obvious what those are, but I like to think is that we still need to learn how to use those better. People think it's just real-time, face-to-face communications. I think that's the wrong way to do any kind of video. Video is really about showing the problem, not the person. Hey, there's the construction wreck, there's the break in the system, there's the break in the product, etc. There's the crash and burn. So show the problem, not the person, because again, you probably already know the person and you don't need to see their face. I use this in class to kind of help people go through, tell me 10 things that are wrong with this picture here. You can kind of see through the obvious ones is that it's really kind of too much about the people, and there's other people in the background, what the background's about, what about the audio. Keep in mind that video is very precise, and we're used to having very high quality, very high definition video out there. The other side of it I like to remind people is that the audio is even more important as we move from traditional, low audio quality to high definition quality. So the quality of the audio is very, very important. The use of graphics is very important in the senses that we're trying to show a project management, an agile project life cycle. We're trying to show what's going on in a situation, show a sequence, a timeline, or calendar. The next step is augmented. And augmented is really kind of like where we're going next. It's going to be augmenting our learning, training, doing things, operations, medical applications abound, and these kinds of things, training people how to use other machines. And then the last part of it is really we see AI, and I've written a book I hope you get, it's called Mind Meld. It's on iBooks. And it's really talks about how AI, or what is perceived as AI, is going to provide solutions out there. Session 3, and again, we're covering this in minutes as opposed to an hour, hour and a half. I really think you want to kind of get through this process to understand what you really need to do and train people. The idea is that better driver training, better presenter training is going to get you better results in your business. If people, again, are really boring or dull, why not show them how to be better at this thing? The real thing is you can't assume that even the CEO really knows how to give a presentation. We've seen CEOs get in front of Congress and they look stupid or stalwart, or they just don't look like they're really engaging with the Congress people. And these are good examples of how you can do better at this. I've got what I call the SEAL team approach: speaker, engagement, audience, and logistics. It helps you get through all the different elements out there. Often people forget the last one, which is as important as the first one. Speaker, this is really about yourself. How do you train yourself to be a better presenter? What skills are you learning? What speaking skills? There are a lot of speech trainers out there, Toastmasters. If you need to learn how to speak, go to these kinds of things. Get help in doing these kinds of things. Learn how to debate or not to debate. We're teaching salespeople how not to be so confrontational in customer sales training meetings. They seem to think that when a customer raises an objection, that's basically an attack warning, that they need to attack answer everything at the same time rather than just listening, because that one objection is possibly leading to another objection, which is a more important objection. And if you cut them off too early, you've missed the whole point of the sales meeting. So again, go through these kinds of things. We like talking about schedules, being prepared, get everything's organized. This is really what you do as a speaker. This is your job, because again, you're in front of the audience. It's your job to make sure everything's organized. Is everything laid out properly? Make sure your presentation is well laid out. Make sure it's visually exciting. I've been told, by more than 100 people, over 1,000 presentations, that they like the presentations because they learn visually. People like to learn through pictures because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I think you can, the point right now is that viewers can read 5 times faster than you can speak. So again, don't put all your bullets up at once. Go through each bullet at a time. Be very careful how you explain these bullets. Make sure that there's an executive summary, and make sure that there's a presentation. Make sure you've got the handouts there. Maybe not just at the beginning, but at the end, so they know what's going on. I like the idea of 1 bullet, 1 graphic per slide. Keep that in mind as you're putting together the presentations. Whether you get through this training or not, it will help you get better presentations. I've seen PowerPoint slides with 15 bullets on there. The person doesn't realize they're still struggling through maybe the explanation of bullet number 1 when the rest of the people have read the whole 15, and now they're bored. They think that, what's next? Humans are designed for what's next. Whether you want to call it FOMO or whatever, people are looking for what's next. For decades, I've also incorporated flash animation. Again, a picture's worth 1,000 words, an animation's worth 10,000 words, because you can't wave your hand fast enough to explain how Wi-Fi works. You can't explain how the TCP/IP, how the internet works by just trying to draw pictures. You have to use it through animation. People get the aha factor a lot faster. Again, what you're going for is really a longer retention cycle of the communication that you're putting forth out there, because otherwise, why bother? All right? Show the problem, not the person, because video can go where you can't go or don't want to go. This is a picture from the BP oil spill. And there are lots of places, whether it be space or undersea or in a building or whatever, in a fire, you really don't want people to go. People can't get there. So people don't really add any value unless they're in the problem, unless you're showing the person who's, hurt or damaged or in need of help, and you need to show that for legal reasons or discovery or documentation or compliance. You don't really need to show the person. So make sure you're showing the problems and make sure that you really kind of get people to see those situations. There's a lot of situations where, like through a microscope or something like that, you can use a video to send to people long distance. Again, you don't need real-time, full-motion video for that. Again, if nothing's moving, if it's an X-ray image, if nothing's moving, you don't need full-motion video. Still frame video is excellent screen capture. Again, show the picture, show the problems out there. All right. So make sure that everything is kind of like, get organized, etc. Make sure that people are, what is the expectation going on here? I think the reason why people hate meetings is because they're just so unprepared for them. The managers having their weekly staff meetings, people have to slog through the whole process with understanding what is the goal here. Also understand, dress for success, personal image, and voice preparation, like train your voice in the morning, is really important. If you need help with that, there are a lot of speech therapists out there. You may not think of it as therapy, but it's good training for your voice, to get your voice ready for the presentation. I'm really a big fan of, dress for success, I just mentioned. Personal image is really important. What kind of is your style? Are you a confidence person? Are you a dictator? You just get in front of the audience. Do you add humor into the situation? I think humor also helps people to feel that you're engaged with them. You're not just talking down to them, etc. I think that stage fright is something that people often get. It's not something that you really can kind of, say, well, you can't do that. But basically, what you do through the whole process of training people how to do it is that the more they're trained, the more they're prepared for, the presentation, the less stage fright they will have. Do rehearsals. I've gone with CEOs who get in front of the video the first time and just flop like, a dead fish. But if you write them a short script, you work with them on the presentation. I've seen CEOs take the next video first take. They're really smart people. They know what they need to do, but they just don't know how to do it. So help them through that whole process as well. I think the whole idea of speaker delivery is give yourself a face massage, stretch your leg, yawn, whatever, open your tongue. These are simple things you can do without taking this class. I think the idea of warming up yourself as a presenter is really key to this whole process. And then through that whole process is warm up the audience. Speech jokes are really hard. Everything is so politically correct these days. It's really hard to find some good speech jokes. But on the other hand, you kind of warm them up a little bit, find some speech jokes that you kind of test drive against the audience. Maybe test drive if you need to across the legal department, etc. But the idea is that you really want to get yourself prepared for this, because the students are going to reflect what you're all about. If you have confidence, they will have confidence. If you're afraid, they're afraid. So you kind of have to work through that whole process of keeping the audience warmed up and keep them going on the whole thing. The whole idea, there's all these kind of tricks that not all of them have to be used, but certainly try some of these things. Engagement. All right, here's the engagement process. This is really hard because what happens is that most speakers prefer to have questions at the end, because what happens is that if you take a question by one person, another person may have another question, and then you kind of thrown off track. So it's always great to use a flipboard, flip chart, whiteboard, whatever, and let people know up front is that all the questions will be answered, but write them down and park your question until the end. This allows you, the presenter, because again, you may have content that will answer that question later in the presentation. Again, you're the only person who knows where this presentation is going. So don't let them, keep them in suspense. Hitchcock was really did well with that thing. Keep them engaged by keeping them almost suspenseful. Also realize, and we talked about this in the kind of formats in this kind of engagement process, is what is the format here? Is it round table? Is it just we're going to go around? Is it a hearing format? Is it a broadcast format? Is one person talking? What is the format of the presentation? That will help, kind of set the stage for this thing. Do people already know what's going to be talking about up front? Is this just a matter of formality? Is this a decision? Are there other participants that need to be brought in, experts or whatever? Have we covered all the topics? Where are we in the whole decision-making process? Because I don't think that often people go to class or these meetings, what have you, they don't really have an idea what the outcome is going to be. Well, if you don't, the attendees won't either, and of course, they're not going to necessarily be happy with that. Why was I here? Well, I didn't understand what was going on. What's the goal here? If you're going to a trade show, the panel format is pretty obvious, but at the same time, there's a lot of other formats that exist out there that, is it one-to-one? Do I need to get together with Fred or Jane to make sure we're together on this thing before we go to the thing? Because if they can't support me in the process, then I better not go until I do, until I build a consensus. Do we agree on this? I don't need you to go, Fred, and the presentation and say, well, I disagree with where Tom's going with this thing. That doesn't accomplish anything. It makes me look bad, you look bad, and the whole process look bad. Audience. Again, there are ways to engage with the audience that really is focused on the audience. The engagement is kind of like how you communicate with them, but the audience is, activities such as voting, polling, and testing. I think these are really good ways to get, are we building a consensus here? Do we everybody like the class? Does everyone like the food service? Does everyone like what's going on here? You make sure that everybody has a chance to get involved and have their feedback. I'm not a fan of using, net promoter scores or things like that, because again, I've worked with people and they go, well, Tom, you only got a 3.65 on this, that's one session 3 versus a 3.9 on the last one. What happened there? And you're going, well, I don't know. Sometimes people feel like a nut and sometimes they don't. Sometimes feel like, they really understood it and sometimes they don't. So you can't, the real thing is, what did you like about this presentation? How can I do it better? What would you like to know differently? what was missing from the presentation. Simple narrative questions and answers helps you gain a lot more as to the process. The last part is logistics. I don't think you can be prepared enough for all the changes or challenges that exist out there. I've delivered international video conferences from Europe to America and beyond, from Australia to America and beyond, and you cannot be prepared for all the consequences of outages and errors and things like that, and that's what people are going to look for. The reason why, this whole large screen thing that Steve Jobs really invented, and basically these corporate presentations, is to give a bigger picture going on out there. Whether you look at the rooms, I think rooms are fine, iPads are fine, whatever kind of module you're doing is fine. Make sure that you understand all the noises that are not fine out there. It's the room. If the noisy room by the busy highway with the sirens going by, that's going to ruin the presentation. So keep in mind your conference rooms need to have nice curtains. If you don't have that, have some other things. This is a room I designed a long time ago. Just give you an idea. Break up. Make sure that the room is audio ready. Make sure it's quiet. Make sure that there's not a lot of, again, windows and outside noise. Make sure that the HVAC, the heating, ventilating, air conditioning, is not too noisy. Also, make sure that there's lots of things. One of the things that we put in these rooms is overhead cameras, because often, whether it be a PowerPoint presentation or maybe you've seen these overhead, somebody needs to put down a product or some sort of medical example, or being able to give a demonstration. An overhead camera is really a nice way to do that. There's lots of ways to organize rooms out there. I don't think that there's any one room style out there. Just make sure you're ready. Make sure that you have a meeting report analysis. Transcriptions are nice, but again, you have to edit them. Otherwise, it's just a lot of blah, 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 aha, blah, blah, blah out there. I think you need to make sure that you verify engagement, voting, polling, testing, surveys to what took place out there. Make sure you're feeding back to people saying, what really took place out there? Did you really understand this process? Make sure that there are things of, especially if it's a long day, all day, 2-day, whatever, make sure you've got all your food service, special diets, and child care is often increasingly important to people, to a lot of these audiences out there. Take breaks on time. Make sure you've got a schedule. You can't always rely upon your body to manage someone else's bodily functions. So if someone has to go to the bathroom, you better make sure that there's time for that. Session 4 is incorporating digital meeting technology in the whole process. And the sense is, okay, we've got our training here. You got the technologies out there. Okay, fine. What are we going to use it for? This is the negotiation, deliberation, convincing, jury, delegation of work. What is the whole process out there? And I think that's different from the meeting type. There's meeting type where there's a panel discussion, but is this a jury? How are you going to approach that? So I think the real challenge here is, again, making sure you've got through these issues out there. Is the goal here getting everyone on the same page? Do we all agree on this? Or is it just information seeking? Oh, tell me more about your situation, Fred. Oh, Jane, tell me more about the discussion of ideas that you presented last week that you can share with the audience here. Make sure that there's delegation of work, and make sure that the people are followed up. Now, Fred, did you really follow up? Make sure that was really done, so that, because the cement trucks are coming tomorrow, and I'm not sure. I don't see any bricks out back, so we better make sure that's on track here. I've seen people do stand-up meetings, via video. That's okay too, but make sure, what is the goal here? Is the goal just to pass information to make sure that everybody's got their bricks on time, or is there some other activity going on that we need to know about? Because otherwise, it's going to flop, and flops every day, because if you read LinkedIn every day, someone's complaining about the meetings out there. And the real reason is that, again, the vendors out there, the video conferencing providers aren't doing the training. They're just throwing hardware at the situation and hoping that whether it be some sort of process, people will be better at it. Well, in fact, it's just as Peter Adams said, technology only makes it worse. So that's what we see out there, and then people walk away. You're actually not just gaining support out there; you're actually losing support, because if you're not organized, they're not going to help you. If you're abusive in the meeting, they're not going to help you. You've got to make sure that people are on board, and make sure there's a consensus out there. Another thing I came up with is communication will always fail except by chance. Assume that what you communicated out there did not happen. Start there and work up from that, because the next stage is what is said is not what is heard nor what is done. So you may have said, hey, get the bricks. The other person said, didn't know what kind of bricks. Well, so you make sure that there's a communications failure right there. Oh, do I know what kind of bricks you really want out there? So again, make sure that the communication is verified, followed up, and make sure, did you really understand what I was talking about there? I do think that this whole process is making us better, but on the other hand, making life faster doesn't make it better. Strategically, the faster you can communicate, the faster you can change, and those that change the fastest will be the most successful. I said that for 30 years, and I still believe it today. This is the end of the presentation. There's a little bit more about what else we do. We do other webinars on critical concepts in crisis management communications. We do another webinar on accelerating business faster by building strategic customer assessments. That's another great session we do out there. The other one I also have great fun with is building what I call the corporate or competitive intelligence agency. I think that's in response to all the stuff that's going on out there. If you don't understand what's going on with Boeing, you need to understand about all this kind of stuff, because people are coming after you. The newer ones is on artificial intelligence. And I think that's really important because I wrote an article, you can look it on LinkedIn, about the 12 major failures of why AI will fail. People are just tossing money at stuff and not understanding what the outcome is, and thinking this, and by calling it AI, is not AI. If I got an AI toaster, well, how do I know my toast is any smarter out there? One of our newest ones, and I'm going to talk about this more tomorrow, is enterprise sales acceleration. We put this course together as a reflection of what's going on in the industry out there. The people in sales management don't know about how to help their sales, direct in sales and channel partners sell into larger business, and this helps to people through that whole process. This is a 1 to 3 day class. It's really a lot of fun. I love doing sales training for people, especially technical sales training, because you have to work through the whole process. And the whole goal of this is what I call maximize the confidence close factor and the customer gain retain ratio. Confidence, as Ivan said, is a demonstration of knowledge. The more you know, the more you're able to sell, because as the adage goes, you can't sell what you don't know, and customers won't buy what they don't understand. And the last part of that is the confused mind always says no. And that kind of leads us to the end of the presentation for today. We're almost at the bottom of the hour. So, and now, if you have any questions, you can type them in, or you're welcome to get the handouts, which are already included. And I look forward to scheduling this with you. And I thank you for all your time and efforts today. And have a great day. Cheers. Bye.